It's halfway through 2022, which means it's time for some top 10 lists so far. I'm doing movies, streaming, and a business-centric worst list. So buckle up. I have strong opinions. Let's start out on a positive note, though, with the top 10 movies of 2022, again, so far. And I gotta tell you, this was a hard list to put together, as the movie business clearly has still not totally recovered from the pandemic. They're putting out a lot less movies, a lot less mid-range movies, and some of the movies that are coming out are suffering from suffering in quality due to pandemic restrictions for both production and post-production. You can tell. All right, so let's begin. And as always, be sure to share your own thoughts and lists down below. Number 10, Ambulance. Yes, that's right. Michael Bay threw his own movie under the ambulance during the press tour, which caused many people, including myself, to dismiss it. If Michael Bay doesn't even like it, what hope do the rest of us have? Also, for some reason, nobody ever wants to pay to see Jake Gyllenhaal in theaters, which is too bad because he's so talented. But he's a little like Ryan Gosling. But, let's see if either one of them can break out of that. They're so good, but nobody wants to see them. Anyway, when this movie hit theaters, there was chatter from the people who dared see it that it was actually pretty darn good. And then when it got an A- cinema score, it made the rest of our heads spin. So when it hit digital, I was like, okay, I'll try it. And it's classic Michael Bay goodness. Oh, it's so good once you get past the first 20 minutes, which are very silly. They have a little bit too many Bayisms. But once they get to the bank, it's all gravy from then on out. Wow, a taut, high-octane thriller, which reminds you of the good movies that first made Bay a household name before he became a household joke. All right, number 9, Jurassic World Dominion. That's right, it's on my list. It's the weakest of the World trilogy, but as I said in my review, it's still better than Jurassic Park 2 and 3. Plus, it still has dinosaurs in it, thank you very much. And the return of Sam Neill and Laura Dern, which delivered. Unlike Star Wars, the return of these 3 classic characters doesn't miss a beat. They actually seem the same, have lots of screen time, and interact with each other. Who'd have thunk it? It works. It's so frustrating that Star Wars didn't do that before Carrie Fisher so unfortunately and tragically passed away. And Harrison Ford insisted his character be killed off. I'd be like, we have to reunite you. Harrison Ford's like, I'm out of here. Who lets an actor dictate the future of a character? All right, so anyway, plus the new characters are also great, and I think that Bryce Dallas Howard has become a Jurassic favorite as well. Chris Pratt was very good in the first 2 movies, but I think he took a little bit of a back seat here, and I'd be curious why the franchise decided to do that. He didn't have as good scenes as he's had in the other movies. I had a fun time watching Dominion, though, and it proves there's still a lot of amber left to mine in this franchise. And next, bring back Lex and Tim. We all want it. They must do it. They must. All right, number 8, The Northman. Yeah, it wasn't Viking Gladiator, but once you get past that, it's a pretty darn cool history lesson. Like so many, I've always been fascinated by Vikings. And to get a realistic look at what it was like to be a Viking and live back then is pretty mind-blowing, largely because of how much it sucks. It's not only very different from today, but also there are some interesting similarities and things that history has not really made, history classes and pop culture have really not made evident, because they're not as accurate as we would like. The visuals here are also striking. I felt a lot like I was reading an adult version of the Greek mythology book that I grew up on. So cool. And then to realize that the real Prince Amleth was the inspiration for Shakespeare's Hamlet. Amleth wanted his story to be told forever, and it actually has been. Talk about #goals. Like, how impressive is that? All right, number 7, Lightyear. Now, let me tell you, this is on my best list, but you're also going to see it on my business-centric worst list as well. Because while Lightyear's mission for Pixar has been a catastrophic failure, I personally enjoyed the film. I don't really think this is Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story movies, but as an astronaut story, a mix of WALL-E and Interstellar, I feel this movie has a lot of really interesting things to say about the complexity of heroes. That's how I would boil it down. Be sure to check out my review and spoiler review for my deeper thoughts on it. I know some people feel Buzz isn't very heroic in this movie, but I think especially today, his willingness to keep an open mind to new people and new ways of thinking and new experiences is pretty darn heroic. And I think at the same time, he didn't lose his sense of self. Plus Socks! What a fabulous character! As I also said in my review, I think Socks has the best shot at jumping from the movie to the Disney empire and the theme parks, merch, Disney Plus, and more. We want more Socks! Number 6, Doctor Strange 2. I know, pretty freaking low for an MCU movie, but don't worry, there's another one on this list. I just can't give very high marks to a movie whose creative team admitted to not paying any attention to the defining story of one of its leads, WandaVision. Both Doctor Strange and the Scarlet Witch get the short end of the stick here, and they should have made the movie longer. And it's hardly a multiverse of madness. As many said, it's more of a multiverse of meh. Also, the Illuminati cameos are shockingly disappointing. Sloppy fan service that Marvel usually rises above. What the heck, Feige? But Wanda is so popular that even at her lowest point story-wise, her fans still powered the movie to almost $1 billion worldwide. I recently asked you guys, why did you rewatch Doctor Strange so many times in theaters if you didn't like it? And the overwhelming response was, Wanda! Look who just became the dominant figure in MCU Mystic. It's true. Sorry, haters. It's true. Number 5, Everything Everywhere All at Once. But ooh, look who stole the multiverse thunder. Now, I don't personally love this movie, but I respect it. Especially for Michelle Yeoh's star turn in the lead role, where she gets to showcase her acting chops instead of just her karate chops. And as smaller films and indie films struggle at the box office thanks to the pandemic, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a shining ray of hope, becoming A24's top-grossing film both domestic and worldwide. Deservedly so. Good for them. They kept it in theaters before going to streaming for a very long time. They did not blink, even with all the googly eyes. Everything Everywhere All at Once will likely be a very strong awards contender, and I think it should be. Plus, it also brought back Short Round, a.k.a. Ke Huy Quan, back to Hollywood. He had to leave because he wasn't getting any opportunities. And he's getting them now, though, because next up, he's already set to co-star in Disney Plus's American-Born Chinese, along with his Everything Everywhere All at Once co-stars, Yeoh and Stephanie Hsu. Isn't that great? That's fantastic. Number 4, Elvis. As I said in my review, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis is a bit like being thrown around a pinball machine, but what a ride. Combine that with Austin Butler's star turn as Elvis and Tom Hanks' mesmerizing performance as both the angel and the devil on Elvis's shoulders, and you have a haunting movie that really sticks with you. There's been a lot of great movies about the cost and dangers of celebrity, and this is another one to add to that list. It's also great to see movie biographies going back to telling the whole story instead of just a small chapter of someone's life, so you can really get the whole picture. I appreciate this approach much more. Elvis is not a perfect movie by a long shot, but it's a very ambitious film at every level, and that makes it worth our time. Number 3, Thor Love and Thunder. Here's the MCU movie at a very respectable position on this list. Number 3, the bronze. Top 3, baby. Thor Love and Thunder is a much smaller film than Doctor Strange 2, and maybe that's why it works so well. The movie isn't about the MCU at large, but about Thor's corner of the MCU. And the way that the story is pushed forward here is not only impressive, but very exciting. Lots of great stuff happening in New Asgard now and in the next movie, which is set up so well here. Also, Thor Love and Thunder highlights just how great Chris Hemsworth has become in this role, making Thor not just a real sweetheart, but also someone who's very funny, very open, very cool guy, and just great to be around. I mean, Hemsworth is approaching Robert Downey Jr. levels of character ownership here. He has become Thor. I would say that Chris Evans is Captain America, but I don't think Captain America was ever really well defined personally. You know, it was more about him and Bucky. All right, so anyway, number 2, it was tough to decide between the top 2 here, but I had to put Top Gun Maverick as the runner-up. And a lot of you will feel it was robbed. It should be my number 1, and as I told you, it was close, and it was a tough decision. but it's number 2. So Top Gun Maverick, though, is arguably a perfect film, combining the way Hollywood used to make them with the way they do now, thanks to a thrilling and surprising third act. Just the right amount of ridiculous. And once again, practical effects win the day, with a lot of the action done in camera thanks to the help of the military who are really flying those jets. Yes, Top Gun Maverick is a bit of military propaganda, but it's what we all hope the military to be. Real-life heroes who are humble and willing to make the ultimate sacrifice if called upon, and how that affects their community. That's a really, I think, strong part of the movie that doesn't get a lot of attention. It's all about the hoorah. But there's a tear in the eye. There's a tear in the eye. Tom Cruise is at the top of his movie star game, but he also gets a great assist from a very strong supporting cast, particularly Mr. Miles Teller, who is having one heck of a year. And then number 1, you guessed it, is the Batman. I love the Batman so much. My 2 favorite comic book properties, as many of you know, are Batman and X-Men. And to see Batman so perfectly realized on the silver screen after decades of Hollywood just missing the mark. I mean, I've liked previous Batman movies, but this was a joy to behold. Wow. Matt Reeves didn't try to put his own spin on Batman or make Batman more accessible or more Hollywood. Matt Reeves fell in love with the comics and brought them to life, but at the same time, he did tweak them a little bit, to be fair, making them more modern with a younger cast and a story that reflects not just today's society, but a lot of what it's like to be around today. Like, for instance, the social media aspects of the Riddler are amazing. So well done. And this movie features the best Batmobile chase scene to date, hands down, and it's tough to top the Tumbler. The Avengers, as I've long said, was very much a Marvel comic book movie come to life, and I will still remember how I felt watching that first Avengers movie. It was an incredible experience to be able to say, this is what it's like reading comics to non-comic book readers. And I would say we finally have, while I know DC has other kinds of stories, but this is, I think, what DC is best known for. And to have a DC comic book finally brought to life is just as exciting. So those are my top 10 movies of 2022 so far. Be sure to share your own lists down below, your thoughts on my list, and also be sure to subscribe. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.